Everybody back for episode 2 of What We Are Watching. I am Joey, joined again by Big TJ to talk some more Sopranos. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about episodes 3 through 6 of The Sopranos. Now, we mentioned last time, just to close the loop on this, I said that I felt like Tony was a good guy, that he has to do some bad things, but I feel like all in all, he's a good guy.
Okay.
Um, I still think that he wants to do what's right and do what's good, but in these episodes, we definitely see him do some bad things.
Big time facts. Big time facts. Um, to the point that you had made, like you say, he's a good guy. He just does bad things, and I'm just like, what we saw in this last four is more of the other side. Because in the first two episodes, we see Tony trying to be a present husband, trying to be a present dad, going out there, looking at the ducks, trying to get his kids involved in the ducks,
Mm-hmm.
using his influence to get his son's teacher's car back. You know, we see that, him going out of his way to have a relationship with his mom while his mom is not needing to be by herself. He's like trying to do it. Like, so we see him in the first two episodes really trying to be a present son,
Mm-hmm.
So you're sitting here like, okay, I know what this show is supposed to be about, you know. It's supposed to be about some killing, some organized crime. Why am I watching this dude try to be the best dad of the year? And now the other shoe is dropped. So now we're getting some action.
So let's go into it. We go to episode 3, Denial, Anger, and Acceptance. And I just copied and pasted the episode plot lines from Wikipedia just to give us a little through line. And Wikipedia groups it together by storyline, not how it
Okay.
appears in the episode. So
Okay.
it starts out. We meet Shlomo Titelman
Titleman.
is the head of a Hasidic Jewish family. His daughter is seeking a divorce from her husband Ariel, who claims that he has built up one of the family's businesses, a motel, and will only consent to a divorce if he receives a 50% stake in
Yep.
the motel. Um, Tiedelman approaches Tony, who agrees to remove Ariel's claim in return for a 25%
Mhm.
stake. And Shlomo's son is not for this. He says they
Not
are
having it.
creating a golem by doing this, but Shlomo goes ahead. Ariel turns out to be very tough, both emotionally and physically, and will not yield. However much he is beaten up by Silvio and Paulie, who Tony has sent to, go straighten this out. And they're like, he is not going to do it. And
Go
so,
handle this. Because, I mean, it seemed like it was common practice for them. When he says, go handle it, it's not, it seems like this is nothing that,
right, nine
Sil
times
and
out of
Paulie
10,
haven't
it's
done.
handled and they go
Right.
back. We've taken care of it. He says,
Hmm.
thank you, whatever. This time they're like, this guy's not. And Tony's like, you got to go do some things yourself. But then he gets over there.
And
And
still,
sure enough, it's still. Um, so they consult Tony. He comes over there, still nothing. Tony goes
hmm
outside and consults Hesh, uh, who obliquely suggests threatening Ariel with castration.
gets it done.
Finishes brisk.
Finishes brisk.
Ariel yields. Uh, Tiedemann then attempts to renegotiate the agreement because he's like, we've now lost face because you had to do it like that. But Tony shows him, no, I'm sorry. We had a deal,
We
and you're
had a
going to
deal,
honor it.
and you're
Yeah.
gonna honor it. Titleman is like, because I mean, and I recognize it. Titleman's like, look, he wanted 50, you wanted 25, but because of you threatening him, he's willing to settle for 15. So we don't need you anymore.
Tony's like, all right, that 15's coming out of your 50.
It's coming out of your 50, not mine. No, it's coming out of your 75, not my
Yeah,
25,
you're
bro.
75. Not
Absolutely,
my 25. Yep.
which is hilarious because he ends up losing, 40%. So all he gained by bringing Tony in was 10%.
Yep. That's it.
Oh man.
Meanwhile, Jackie remains in the hospital.
Yeah.
Tony takes him a dancer from the Bada Bing, posing as a nurse for a private party. And Jackie's like, "What are you doing? The girl, she came in earlier. You're not even." And I'm like, "Oh man, even I can figure this out."
Right. Let me check your blankets.
Yeah. However, Jackie's condition continues to deteriorate, and he is unable to think of anything else. Then there's our old friend Artie Bucco. Artie is still depressed by the loss of his restaurant. The insurance company continues to suspect arson. He and his wife, the lovely Charmaine,
Maney.
they cater a charity event at the Sopranos home. And when Artie complains again, he and Tony get into an altercation that turns into like a food fight.
A food fight.
But during the event, Carmela offends Charmaine by seeming to treat her like a servant. Come here, the finger.
With the fingers, yeah.
Yeah. And Charmaine is not happy.
At all.
At all. And while they're clearing things up, Charmaine confides that years ago, before Carmela and Tony were married, she slept with Tony.
Charmaine
Now they don't.
So spiteful.
Now I don't know. Again, I am trying to avoid spoilers because I've been spoiled on 2 more things since then. I'm not going to get into it.
Right.
But now, like, I just have to avoid anything. If it says The Sopranos, I'm like, oh, I got to look away. So in the rest of this episode, the next 3 episodes, this is not brought up again. So I'm assuming it may come up in some form in the future.
I told you I'm coming in like I've never seen it before. So while I am aware that I've seen it, I'm like, my short-term recall is just gone. It's busted. So the reason that I called her spiteful or petty, in that moment, she was very much insulted, by Carmela and the way that she felt like she was being treated. Now, the thing about it is like real world stuff. I know we're friends,
right?
But you're here to do a job. It's not like I'm calling you out a name. The only thing you saw was me doing this, and no one else knows what that means but you.
Right.
So Charmaine doesn't need to get upset. But I feel like because of everything that happened in the previous 2 episodes with regards to Artie, wanting to take the cruise to get the tickets from Tony and then not being able to, and then the restaurant going up, and now they're just now moving into this new house, which we both know Carmela does not like. She was just saying nice things to be friendly. I think Charmaine was just like, you know what, I need to take the upper hand back. And that was exactly what to say because it destroyed Carmela. I don't care what anybody say. She was very stoic in how she took the news, but no, she was ripped up.
And she has a very interesting arc in these 4 episodes. Carmela does. We'll get into it more as we progress. And I don't want to get too like emotional or psychological. Thank you. I don't know what was happening with my brain there, but
it happens to me too.
But you've heard the phrase, or there is the phrase there, that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And Charmaine was hurt. And so the only way I think she felt in the moment, I need you to feel as bad as I do. So, and she like volunteers the information. I don't know how to tell you this. And when knowing she knows exactly what she is doing.
I never wanted to tell you this, but you remember that year you would, that summer you were down at the beach, down at the shore with your family, and she's like, yeah. Well, I went back behind the school and I gave it to
like while trying to she's like, I'm gonna hit you with this wrench, but I'm gonna wrap this sock around it so it doesn't hurt that bad. I don't think you all weren't like steady yet, but it's before you really got together.
No, let me tell you, y'all were on the outs. She's like, y'all had been a couple, but y'all were on the outs. Okay. soon as Tony had the opportunity to get up in these jeans, he did it. So yeah, in your face, Carmela. There you go. You and your kids in your beautiful house. You know, y'all
And
can have it.
and your hand signaling me. Let me tell
Yeah,
you
you want a
exactly.
hand signal, huh? You want a hand signal? Go hang out with the pastor.
Then we move on to Meadow and her friend Hunter.
Yeah.
Exhausted from choir practice and studying for the SATs, decide they need speed and go to Christopher for a supply. Not, I wouldn't have done it even if I had been in her shoes, but I'm like, if you're going that route, you went to the right person.
Big time facts. Big time facts. I mean, of all the people in Tony's crew, if there's anybody that's going to be able to get her something like that, it's definitely going to be Christopher. Partly because they're so close in age.
Right.
But he's the what I'm learning. He's the family junkie. They always say every family's got somebody that knows how to get some drugs, and apparently I'm that person in my family. So.
Sidebar here. I asked my dad one time, I'm like, Dad, and I was just not heavy stuff. I'm like, Dad, if you needed to get pot, like mom needed it and it would, make her feel, would you know who to go to? This guy lists like 5 people.
Right. Well,
on his-
there's Slippery Pete down the street now. He's a little high on those prices, man, but he'll get it to you real good.
He didn't go into prices, but he's like, yeah, so and so, so and so, so and so.
Awesome.
And then told me which one he would probably go to.
Everybody knows somebody.
Christopher, though, I feel like is growing up in these episodes because initially he's like, no way.
Right. And
Feeling
my apologies for cutting you off, but I think what we're seeing very early on is influences outside of who we are. So, we see Tony, we see a lot of his motives are selfishly driven. But then he has Carmela to influence him and remind him of his family and his duties like that. When you look at Chris originally said no to Meadow, but it was Adriana who influenced him. Like, look, if you have her go down to Jefferson Ave, they're going to sell her some Ajax.
Yeah.
And boom, now you have Chris willing to do it. Brandon didn't care. Brandon Filoni didn't care. He would have did anything to get with Hunter.
This is it's like almost like you have Wikipedia open behind you that I can't see it. Because it says Chris initially refuses, fearing Tony's wrath if he finds out. His girlfriend, Adriana, convinces him to do it anyway, as the girls are likely to get adulterated and unsafe drugs from less trustworthy dealers. Chris agrees to provide the speed, stressing that Meadow must never speak of it.
Right.
And at the recital, I was cracking up because I'm like, oh man, it's hitting them. It is hitting both of them.
Now, I don't know how many of our listeners have done any drugs outside of the normal, pots or Starbucks, But what you saw right there, that was them feeling it. Like when you're singing, you're moving your lips around just to make sure you're feeling what you're feeling. Clearly, they're sweating their balls off, man. So, yeah, that was
Wikipedia
apparently
says
that's
they
what
were
Crystal is.
Wikipedia says they were showing subtle signs of methamphetamine use.
There you go. Hey, she was still able to sing it.
Oh yeah, no. And then it says they sing their brief solos successfully.
Right. Knowing that they had the SATs the same day as the recital. So if we paid attention to that episode, now at this point we know that Meadow has taken the SATs and gotten high on Crystal to perform. So that's where we are with her. But the point that I had previously made about the women having influence over the men more so in this episode, not only do we have Tony with Carmela. We have Tony with Dr. Melfi because we hear him repeating a lot of the things that she says to him in counseling. We have Adriana and Christopher, and we have Olivia and Junior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she influences him as well. I know we hadn't got to that point yet, but I mean, ultimately,
That's
that's
our
that's.
next. That's our next point. Yeah,
I promise I'm not. I do not have
I
Wikipedia
know,
open.
but to your point, you made it before. You've seen these before. This is one of your favorite series, so you go through and one thing they're all leading to another. Like I said, Wikipedia puts it in order of like storyline, but all of this
Mhm.
is weaving in and out of
Yep.
everything. Because the last points that it make is that Chris and Brendan return the stolen truck that Brendan took, and the guy gets killed accidentally and all of that. Junior discusses what action to take with Mikey as well as with Livia. And obliquely, it says she advises him to punish Chris and to take drastic action against Brendan. Out alone one night, Chris is seized by Russian thugs, thinking that they came from Tony,
Tony,
that because he found out about Meadow,
right?
who prepare to kill him. He thinks they've been sent by Tony because he sold the speed to Meadow. Wikipedia again. Terrified, he pleads for his life, but it's only a mock execution. And he
They would have.
releases his bowels.
They would have killed her. They would have raped her. I was trying to save her.
And gets dumped off at a very unique place that will come up in the next episode. Uh, Meanwhile, Brendan at home, shot dead by Mikey, and Junior comes in and glances at the body as we close the episode.
That, and obviously all this is going on while the recital is taking place. So you're hearing
Mm-hmm.
the soft angelic, voices of the children in the background. Goes to the imagery of the episode, the innocence of that song that they were singing while Meadow and Hunter are extremely high. So we've got this really beautiful song. You have it being tarnished by the poor choices of the kids that are singing it. You know, all through the night, like that's that thing. But
Right.
then you see Brandon catch one in the eye, so it's like this world. While it's at that moment, it was showing us something very pleasant because Tony and Carmela, they're there together, they're smiling, they're proud of their daughter, and then we're seeing the aftermath of how Tony has chosen to run his crew. But to the point that you have made, and it even goes back to further cement the importance of women in this episode. Um, you're right. Junior does speak with Mikey about what's going on with Christopher and Tony's crew and everything. And short of killing Christopher, Mikey suggests the exact same thing. You know, you should have made an example out of him when it first happened. And then Junior says, we're not making a Western. The only difference is, Livia just. I love Christopher. He put up my storm windows one year. Okay, so we're not going to kill Chris, but we're going to give him some act right. You know, he needs to be reminded of some things. But yeah, Filoni, I don't know. That's what she says. Shrugs her
Right.
shoulders. I don't know. Come on, man. That woman got some juice.
She does. She does. And we'll also pick up Tony going to her in a couple of episodes about Junior. And her's like, I don't know. Again, it's like the mushrooms are on fire behind her again. Hello.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Again with the water next door and
Right.
hiding out from the activities lady.
But so now that we're moving on, I mean, it seems like she's getting more comfortable, which is what we thought was going to be true. I mean, hell, she's slowly but surely becoming a big woman on campus because of who her family is. You know,
Right.
people are checking in on her. Hey, Libby, you going to play bingo? You know, like I mean, it's for to listen to her talk about her experience there. You would think that no one converses with her at all.
Right.
You know, but she's Queen Bee.
She knows what she's doing.
Big time facts. She's a
Yeah.
manipulator.
Yep.
100%.
So let's move on to episode 4, Meadowlands. Tony becomes increasingly paranoid over his sessions with Dr. Melfi, especially after seeing Silvio leaving a dentist's office opposite Melfi's suite. He's also becoming attracted to Melfi
Mm-hmm.
and has corrupt police detective Vin McCaskian
McCaskins. I think that's how they
McCaskian
pronounce it. Yeah.
secretly follow her. McCaskian, who owes Tony money from gambling, assumes Melfi is Tony's mistress. Why are you going out with Hamburger when you got prime rib at home?
Prime rib at home.
And she doesn't have any clue. He yelled something about hamburger and prime rib.
Hamburger and prime rib.
Yeah. And Tony's like, when he sees her with a date, he pulls the pair over, then assaults and arrests the man, who's a lawyer. Tony is beginning to consider quitting therapy, but Carmela, under the impression that Melfi is male, insists that he continues or risk their marriage. That will all blow up in the next episode. Christopher is scared after his mock execution leaves him in a neck brace. He becomes more unnerved when he and Adriana discover Brendan's body. Assuming that Tony is punishing him for giving speed to Meadow, he angrily confronts her, but she assures him she has not told anyone. After finding that Junior and Mikey are responsible, Chris is inflamed and wants revenge. Tony orders Chris to stand down because Mikey is a made man.
Right.
And again, the books are closed. They're not making any.
They're not making anybody else, man. You know that you can't just go after a made guy. And if you're watching the show and you're not familiar with the hierarchy and how the whole thing with the mob is, this is your first introduction into the hierarchy of who you can and cannot kill. You can't just go and just wet anybody. There's a structure to it. So, Christopher and this, and we're seeing, to me, again, talking about the youth of Chris, he's guided by status a lot, because not only did he, quote unquote, by Junior get the high colonic, but his drug dealer, one of the people running one of his corners, didn't kick up his 10%. Junior came and took it. So Chris is feeling extremely disrespected, not only because his friend is dead, not only because they made him poop himself, but they're now affecting his money as well.
Right.
So, but hey, the next time you come here, you better be heavy.
Right. So he tells Chris to stand down because Mikey's a made man, but then he assaults Mikey himself. Tony then confronts Junior, who rejects an offer of compromise and tells him that he should come heavy or don't come at all. So the prospect of war with Junior looms large for Tony, especially after Jackie passes away. Now, Jackie was the acting boss
of the DeMeo family.
Yeah. So Jackie dies. Tony's in the Bada Bing when they find out. They find out via the news. And he's like, I was just there and they told me it was not going to be today. But Jackie dies and does not leave a clear successor. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Now, Tony has the backing of the other capos, but seeks a diplomatic resolution with his uncle after some unwitting inspiration from Melfi about giving the elder the illusion of control. Tony cedes leadership of the family to Junior in exchange for his uncle's income-earning properties and contracts, so war within the family is avoided, while Junior becomes the primary target for federal investigation. Content with his decision, Tony opts to remain in therapy. Now, all of this comes back, and it was something that we talked about last episode. Let's get into one of the final piece that's in this. AJ's been having problems at school with a bigger classmate, Jeremy Piacosta. Jeremy backs down from a second formal fight, meet me at the pit, and pays AJ the compensation for a shirt that was he needed the $40. This baffles AJ. That's what Wikipedia puts it.
I won. Yeah, he was scared of you.
And this is why I say that I think that the episode has double meaning, the episode name, because it's Meadowlands. And Meadow explains that Jeremy's not intimidated by AJ, but by Tony's reputation as a mobster, which knocks AJ over. Tony had coincidentally run into Jeremy's father the day before at the plant nursery.
Yep.
Tony was friendly because he doesn't know anything that's going on, but happened to be holding an axe at the time. And Jeremy's father quickly backed away.
Quickly.
Meadow this is the funniest part of this episode to me. Meadow asks AJ, how many other garbage men live in houses as expensive as theirs? And AJ says, Uncle Jackie.
Why is he our uncle when he's not really related to us?
So Meadow then like, come here, let me show you the computer, and shows him a mafia-themed website. Then at the funeral, Meadow gives AJ a knowing look and nods in the direction of the federal agents just taking pictures. And a lot of those pictures centered in on Junior.
Big time facts. That part, this particular art is one that I'm really excited about because you're talking Tony's kids who are both very different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Meadow seems to be very independent, and even I'll mention this before I go much further. You talk about the name; it has, like you said, a double meaning. Not only was Christopher left in the Meadowlands, which you're familiar with the area and the football team and all that stuff. Like, not only was he left by that stadium, but Meadow actually does land, like you said, and her knowledge of the business is shown because she's able to lay it out for Anthony Jr. with no problem at all. And you're able to see that innocence. Anthony Jr. really didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
He really didn't know. He legitimately thought that the scuffle that he got into in school was won on his own merit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until the very end when we're at the funeral scene for Jackie Aprile, which shouts out to Jackie. He kept the peace when he could.
He did.
But when we see all the people coming up and paying respect to Junior, paying respect to Tony, so now, Anthony Jr. is able to sit back and see it firsthand. How many funerals have you been at where the FBI is there taking pictures?
Right.
I mean, that's how it plays out. It's crazy.
So going on, and this is my favorite episode that I've seen so far, this next episode. It's called Episode 5, College. Tony takes Meadow on a trip to Maine to visit 3 colleges she is considering. Now, everybody watching this was not shot in Maine. This was shot in New Jersey. But the areas they're talking about are real places. There is a Waterville. I've been there many times. My wife's best friend up here, Michelle, that's where she lives.
Oh.
And Bates, Colby, and Bowdoin colleges, they're all 3 real colleges in southern Maine. So these are all real places that they are going to. During the drive, Tony is taken aback when Meadow just straight up asks him if he's in the mafia. And he denies it. When Meadow is skeptical, he admits that a portion of his income is from illegal gambling and other activities. And then Meadow admits that she took speed to study for the SATs. But when Tony reacts angrily, will not say where she got it.
I think I'm telling you.
Yeah. Both seem relieved by this mutual honesty on difficult topics. Then Tony's at a gas station. Tony thinks he spots Fabian Petrulio, Febby, a former member of the DeMeo family who entered witness protection after turning state's evidence, but he got kicked out.
Kicked out. He was still dirty.
Yeah. Tony gets Christopher to run the plate numbers from his car and finds that he now goes by the alias Fred Peters.
Fred Peters. Fabian Petrulio goes to Fred Peters.
Although if you're familiar with witness protection, they do tell you to try to pick something that's close to your name. Because if you've been TJ all your life and all of a sudden somebody yells out, Fred, and you're like, Fred.
What is he talking to? I'm not Fred.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I am Fred. Okay, now I got you.
I got it right now. I am Fred.
I am Fred. Yeah. I mean, that's how most movies are named. I am Legend. I am a robot. Let's just put it down on the arm and I will never forget.
Will Smith and a robot are both in the witness protection program. That's what we've learned here today.
Yep. That's it.
So Tony resolves to locate and execute Petrulio while continuing his trip with Meadow. He leaves her with some students. They go to Colby. Hey, make sure she sticks to coke, because I'm out here.
He, at this point, because and when they went to the first school, before he sees his friend, right? Because that's how he explains it to Meadow. Oh, I saw a friend. Before he sees his friend, they went to one school, and he is very much present with what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I want a school paper. He's sitting down, waiting on her to get out. Like, he's invested. But once the decision is made, like you say, he's doing his research. Take her out, do what you need to do. I need to find out what's going on, and he's speaking with Christopher, who is dealing with the rain in New Jersey, because that rain in New Jersey, it looms over a couple other storylines as well. We'll get into here in a moment, but Tony going through that, how hard, like, he's trying to research this guy, like finding out where he lives, creeping around his house, the dog's barking. Fred Peters is like, he just knows something's off.
Yeah.
He don't know what it is, but he knows something's off. So yeah, man, this we're really starting to see Tony, get just a little bit more involved, hands on.
He locates his house and he locates his business and sees a carved wooden bust of President Reagan in there. And he's like, he's got him, because that was a hobby of his before.
Oh, that wasn't Reagan. He just named it Reagan. I thought he just named it Reagan, because he had a bust of somebody else, and he put the name Ronald Reagan on it because he wanted to keep the bust, but he didn't want anybody to know who it really was. I thought that was my perception whenever
I thought they had said that it was Reagan. Anyway.
Okay.
But it's a bust. And
Gotcha,
and that was his hobby.
That's a telltale.
Yeah. So Fred Peters, he feels like somebody's watching him. Finds the motel where Tony and Meadow are staying, and aims his handgun at Tony, who suspects nothing. Tony doesn't know that this is happening. And the presence of two other guests prevent him from taking the shot, as well as Meadow is just drunk out of her mind. I think it's more Meadow, because when finally the next morning Tony drops Meadow off for an interview, he finds Petrulio at his office and wraps the wire around him. But he tells him, I could have shot you last night. I saw you. I knew your motel. I saw your daughter was drunk. But Tony still goes through with it. But again, Meadow lands, even though this was the next episode, she asked him about the mud on his shoe and the cut on his hands. She can tell he's not telling her the truth. He tells her, I went through the back door, I left his watch on the sink and all of that at the restaurant. But after a time, stops asking him questions. Because I feel like AJ would probably have not noticed, but if he had noticed, would have probably kept asking questions.
At this point where we are now with AJ, then yeah, if he were there, I feel like he would have started asking questions as well. Prior to Meadow telling him anything, I think he would have been oblivious to it. You know, knowing AJ, he probably would have just been playing with a handheld video game or something like that, not even looking at the mud on his dad's shoes or the bloody hands. You know, I mean, that's
I'm
just
go-
AJ.
I'm glad you brought that up. I had taken notes, but then I lost my notes for it. Are these the first time that these people have ever played a video game where they're playing Mario Kart?
I believe so.
Tony's playing with one hand.
With one hand.
And he's like, let's race again. And he resets the game. You don't have to do that to start again. I'm like, what?
I mean, look, I remember Mario Kart on the 64,
Right.
which is what they were playing. And yeah, Tony was holding that remote like it was a Switch controller and it responds to the motion, like, or a Wii controller. It
Right.
responds to where you're holding it. And that wasn't the case with the 64. I hate to disappoint, but no, I mean, again, that interaction goes to show the complexity of the man. You know, you do not think of a stone cold killer, which after college we know Tony is.
Right.
You don't think of a stone cold killer as being a good father, you know, but Tony taking that time to play the game with for a moment with his son was just doing a temperature check on how his kid is doing. You know, and he knows his son because he's like, all right, I'm going to bed. And he's like, go to bed. And AJ doesn't acknowledge him. And then he's like, all right, good night, son. And he's like, good night, Dad. I'm like, okay, so clearly you heard what he said. Take your tail to bed, man. You know?
You know, I said that I think that he would have, like, I not noticed or A not noticed, or would have kept asking questions. I think now, though, having sat here for the last couple of minutes and thinking about it again, I think if he had noticed, he would have asked questions, but would have automatically believed Tony when he told him, "Oh, I had to go around the back door,"
Oh, yeah.
and all of that. I don't think he would have continued answering questions. I think he may have asked questions, but would have been, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense," and then maybe yelled out the window, "My dad's a hero."
It's important that we recognize that these conversations aren't being had with everyone together. There doesn't have to be a collective lie. You know, Tony, as of right now, is still able to tiptoe through the landmines of conversations that he's supposed to have with his family because he can keep everybody compartmentalized and separate. You know, Meadows got this information. And he even talks about it with Carmela. She's like, you know, I think Meadow knows. And they're like, well, does AJ know? And they're like, nah, I don't think he knows yet. Like so they recognize that it's a conversation they're going to have. But again, I repeat, stone cold killers aren't supposed to be good fathers. But what
Right.
that lets it, everybody is somebody's villain, everybody is somebody's hero. So, you know, if you're Fred Peterson, you know, you're looking at Tony as the devil because hell, he killed you. But if you're AJ, you're looking at Tony like the best dad in the world. You know, so how a person can be two things, that's just life. But this show really does a phenomenal job of showing that.
Right.
So I like that duality aspect of it all.
And the whole reason that it's just Tony and Meadow on this, we now get into that part of it, is that Carmela is home. She's sick. She's got one of those bugs that
She's got
lasts
COVID.
before COVID, but she got the quick COVID. She got one of those 24, 48-hour, 72-hour bugs. But everybody's had those. Like, take COVID out of it. Everybody's had those bugs where you just feel awful for like 2 to 3 days.
Right.
And she's at home and AJ brings her breakfast. You said this. And she's like, I'm just not hungry right now. And I'm not going to eat this. That's
My
exactly
eyes were
what's going on.
bigger than my stomach.
Yep. My eyes were bigger than my stomach. AJ asks if she suggests that he goes over to a friend's house to play video games, hang out, whatever. And I think you get us into this because I've gotten to this at points in my life when you're sick. You've got nowhere to go and you just feel awful. It gives your mind a lot of time to think. And I
Yeah,
think her mind kicks into
yeah.
overdrive there. And then what happens? Good old Father Phil drops by.
Rutherford.
because and you're thinking, oh man, because I thought in the first episode when he's played by a different actor, I'm like, he's
Right.
got something for Carmela.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, while that's true, he also has something for Carmela's cooking. He's like the
Right.
ziti, and she's like, it congeals, right? I got one in there. Let me pop it up and
I'm here for that ziti. Like, what? Calm down, Pastor.
and she's like, I got some wine, and he's like, what? Because he's all about it. The priest is like,
Right.
ding dong, open up that ziti and that
He's
wine,
like,
and let's dish.
I'd never turn that down.
And everything is very innocent at this point. I feel like they're talking, they're having the ziti, or she's preparing the ziti and all that. Dr. Melfi, the bug is going around. Dr. Melfi is also not feeling well and calls to reschedule Tony.
Reschedule. Yeah.
And Carmela discovers that Dr. Melfi is in fact a woman
Woman. That
and assumes that Tony is sleeping with her. Because
of
we
all.
also now have been introduced that Tony does have a mistress. And we find out in this episode is that Carmela has known about this for a while. She looked at it as, that's
A form of masturbation.
yeah. They don't mean anything to him. He always comes
Look,
back to me.
when I was younger and watching that, I'm like, okay, that's a very unique way of looking at it, right? But as I'm now watching, I'm like, honestly, that is the most mature way for her to look at that whole thing. Like, they're because of the lifestyle, they're going to be Gumars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can choose to be upset and be in your feelings. That it's a possibility, but you can do it. But it's not changing anything, man. And I mean, and that's the turmoil that they get into in this episode. She sacrificed what was right for what was convenient. That's the quote that she uses. I sacrificed what was right for what was convenient. She wanted the money. She wanted the access. She wanted to be able to raise her family in that particular house. So she allowed Tony's shenanigans. And Father Phil even points that out. Hey, you know,
Yep.
you're complicit in this as well. Now, granted, the word complicit doesn't come in this episode, but he does actually say that to her. You're complicit as well. So, yeah, um, I'm this part of the episode was harder for me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're doing this delicate dance. You know that they have feelings for one another. I don't necessarily know that Carmela likes Father Phil because she's necessarily attracted to him more than what he represents,
Right.
you know, um, which is somebody who is legitimately into it for her. He has an infatuation. I'm pretty sure if things had progressed without phone calls, they probably would have knocked boots, but interruptions being what they are, yeah.
But you saw their relationship in the very first episode. And she
Okay.
also tells Tony, like, there's a difference between me and you. You're going to hell when you
You're
die.
going to hell when you die.
So that relationship, and I think that's what he represents. Like,
Mm,
and she may be attracted to him, but it's more so what he represents, which
makes sense.
we get the opposite side of that coin in the next episode with Tony and Dr. Melfi, but we'll get there. But at this point, like it almost goes too far. But at the
Mm,
beginning of that scene, I think the way that it read to me was that Father Phil was like, I honestly have to step in here because and offers her confession, and we can do it right here. All right, so she agrees, and she just tells him about her fears. Like, I mean, she's honest.
right,
Which, if you're in the Roman Catholic faith, that relationship between the parishioners and the father, that act of confession, that's exactly how you're supposed to be. This is
right.
the person that you're doing that, and I was reading something unrelated years ago, because part of it that is, I think, attractive is that people know, that whatever happens in confession, the father can't discuss with anybody else.
Not supposed to.
Right. That's the major thing. But there's another caveat to that fewer people know about, is that outside of confession, the father cannot even discuss that with the person who's confessing outside of confession.
Right.
So she knows all of this. So she's pouring out her soul because that's what you're supposed to do. And so she tells him, "I fear for my family and her soul and her soul."
Mm-hmm.
And he administers communion, which is what you do, is the cleansing ritual and all that. She sips the wine. He drains the cup.
Finishes it. Guzzles
They
that stuff, yo.
Right. They fall asleep. They wake up. They're almost about to kiss, and as he says later, like it was like a balancing. He was teetering back and
Right.
forth. Um, but he suddenly desists and walks swaying to the toilet, where he becomes ill. He spends the night on the sofa. The next morning, he's mortified, and she's like, "We didn't do anything. Nothing
We didn't
wrong
do.
happened."
Need to
Um,
hurry up. AJ will be here soon.
oh, AJ will be here soon. Ding, I'm home.
Oh my
Um,
God, my car was here all night. We didn't do
we
anything.
didn't do anything,
We're
which is
just
true.
playing.
We know it's
Right.
true, but at the same time, we also know there's that the appearance of impropriety is sometimes worse than impropriety.
Well, and the thing about it is, I mean, hell, they could have had the opportunity. I mean, it's like we're looking at it. They didn't actually do anything, but at one point in time that night, both of them were wanting for more than what they got.
Right.
So intentions mean something, but because nothing happened, Carmela has no reason to be, in her mind, she has no reason to be, remorseful because she didn't do anything compared to Tony.
Right.
Because if you talk to some couples, what Carmela did was grade A sin number one because her heart was into it. She had the intentions to do it. The motives were there. It just didn't happen. So her not being successful, she took a shot. So some people would condemn her for that, which is crazy because again, considering who her husband is and the type of things that he does, why would anybody be upset with Carmela for just having the desire for something, even though she doesn't act on it, considering that Tony has, so much going on. So
It's almost like I talked about my neighbors last episode, the older couple, They didn't like that what they said, that Tony hung out at the strip club, and they
right,
wish he wouldn't curse, overlooking the fact that this man at this point
killed
has now killed somebody.
somebody.
But you're right. They would look at both of them, and she went too far in the
Right.
same episode that he killed someone.
Yep.
But then what happens? Tony and Meadow return that day. Tony wants some ziti.
He's gone.
Ziti's gone, and he's like, your friend the father has been here, right? Carmela tells Tony that Father Phil stayed the night, and he's really not liking that.
He laughed it off at first.
Yeah, she counters his sarcastic. This is how Wikipedia ends the plot, but she counters the sarcastic comments by telling him that Melfi called, and it was, yeah, no, your doctor's a woman.
Because this is college, so we've got one more after this one. So he's had his first dream
Mm-hmm.
about Dr. Melfi. So and I'm sorry for not mentioning that earlier because that plays into what's coming in the next episode. Like now,
Right.
Carmela knows the truth about Dr. Melfi as a female. We've already addressed Tony and all the men really in the shows
Mm-hmm.
and desire to be kept straight by the women in their lives. So, now we're seeing Tony is having actual physical effects about the medication. Like he's having what libido issues, say
Mm-hmm.
ED, based on the medication that he's on. But he's also started dreaming about Dr. Melfi because the other females in his life aren't doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So going through that, knowing that he's having those dreams, we know that he's had that dream already. So when he is confronted with the idea that Carmela was unfaithful, you know, he laughs and then gets angry,
Mm-hmm.
because he's like, no, she didn't do anything. And I believe her, she didn't do anything. But now I'm thinking about the fact that that car sat outside all night long,
All
and
night
now
long.
it's a perception of everybody else. So yeah, he's an odd duck.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, this episode, more than any of the others that we looked at, had more notes that I thought were interesting. And it's about a page worth of notes here. Series creator David Chase has stated that when HBO first read the script, they objected to Tony's murder of Febby. Executives said that Chase had done so well in building Tony up as a sympathetic character, as I talked about last time,
Right.
that they believed if Tony committed such a cold blooded killing, fans would turn on him and the show would lose its protagonist. Chase said that he believed fans would turn on Tony if the character didn't commit murder in this instance, because the admission would make him appear weak.
Right.
Eventually, Chase won the decision, and the episode has become a fan favorite. And Chase named this as his favorite episode because of its self contained nature. Like, there's not a lot of bleeding off into other stories. Like, we've touched down, like, Dr. Melfi checks in, and we see that she has the same bug that we're assuming that Carmela has.
That
But
Carmela has. Yeah.
now we've learned, oh, now Carmela knows that Dr. Melfi is a woman. You see a little bit of Christopher in the rain, but we haven't really gone that back. Junior and company don't really figure in at all. It's really two contained stories. We see a scene of AJ and we hear his voice in another scene, but it's very self-contained. Like I said, so far, my favorite episode that we've seen.
Thinking about college, I think that it fits the count where it is. It couldn't have been the first episode. You're not going to start the series off on college and still have it hit the way that it does.
Right,
I
right.
feel like,
No, no, no. There's a lot.
you
There's too
know,
much stuff happening, even though it's self-contained. You can't start it
right.
off.
You have to paint the picture. You have to set the foundation the way that they did in the first three episodes. Or first four, actually, excuse me, because I'm thinking anger, grief, and acceptance, and then Meadowlands was the fourth one. So college was five. So you've done in 4 hours of world building, you've set the stage enough to where, yes, college is a phenomenal episode because everything is kind of coming to a head. We're realizing we're almost at the halfway point of the season. We really need to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
some skin in the game. And so now we're seeing again Tony as the dad who wants to be the greatest dad, but he still has this other family that he is beholden to. And then, Meadow, she's coming into her own. We've seen her in the first four episodes talk about how she wants to get so far away from her parents. And then in this episode, we see her have a phenomenal connection with her dad to where it
Yeah.
seems like, they're being very honest with one another. Um, Carmela, we see her confliction, because, she knows what she signed up for. She wants to be the best possible wife, but she has needs as well. And she seeks those needs to get met. I mean, I think if she could have got the pastor to give it up, I think she would have took it, with a smile. And, so it's, and then also with the very little bit of Christopher that we got, what this plants a seed for me is one, Tony could have called anybody.
Mm-hmm.
He called Christopher. That has to stand for something because in the previous episode, anger, grief, and acceptance, he went to Seal and Paulie first.
Mm-hmm.
And it was and then when Jackie April is passing away, it's Christopher who's doubting Tony's leadership.
Yeah.
But in the college episode, it is Christopher that he calls, knowing that Christopher is hungry and looking for an opportunity to get made. So Christopher even goes to say, killing this rat would go a long way in getting me made.
Right. You can be off doing your other things and be out of the state when it happens. So you're but Tony's like, no, it's something I have to. Again, going
Right.
back to what David Chase said, the fans would not accept him because he has to do this. Some other things, the college location and the main scenes in college were actually filmed in rural New Jersey. The college exteriors are located at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey. This episode was rated as the best of the series by Time Magazine in a post-series. So out of all the episodes, this is number one, according to Time Magazine, and was ranked number 2 on TV Guide's list of top 100 episodes of all time. Of all television, this
Wow.
ranked number 2.
Wow.
I don't remember what number 1 would be, but if I had to, again, folks, if you look it up later and I'm totally wrong, put it in the comments. I'm thinking that they probably said one of 3 things now that I think about it. Either the last episode of MASH,
That's what I was going to suggest.
the Who Shot JR episode of Dallas,
Yep.
or the final episode of Newhart, where you discover it was all a dream and it's actually his character from the Bob Newhart show in the very last scene. I mean, that was
Okay.
just mind-blowing television at the time. But regardless of what it is, if you think the top 100 episodes of all time at up to that point,
Right.
you've got how many hundreds of thousands of episodes and hours, and this ranks number 2, and
Number
it's
two.
the 5th episode of the series.
Right.
And we
That
know this. I know this. It's one of the reasons I put this on my list for us to do, TJ. It's the reason that I started off. This is going to have some big moments coming
yeah.
up. Again, we're 5 episodes in.
5 episodes
We've got
in.
80 plus episodes left. It's what, 86 of the whole series? We've got 81 episodes left. Number 5 ranks number 2 of all time according to TV Guide.
That just goes to show again the writing, the way that it was put together, the cast and crew. Like, I mean, give respect where it's due. No one knew who Jamie Lynn Sigler was at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, James Gandolfini as an actor hadn't done a whole lot of stuff. So the majority of the cast, I told you when we did this last time, the majority of the cast is from Goodfellas.
Right.
They took they said, look, we got to do this movie. Let's just look at the cast of Goodfellas and take as many people as we can get.
Right.
But it really is a phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal show. And college being the number 2, and this is the 5th of the first season. You know, how awesome of a prop is that? I mean, usually the first season is the harder season to get through for
Right.
any show. So for them to have one so powerful, props to David Chase, man.
Emily Vanderwerf retrospectively wrote that the genius of the episode is that the storyline blends almost every aspect of the show's world so completely that it feels like a natural thing we're watching and not really a story being told. Vanderwerf also praised the cinematography, such as cross-cutting and point-of-view shots, as very effective at putting us in the headspace of both Febby and Tony as they slowly stalk each other, and lauded the episode as a strangely funny, incredibly tense meditation on what it means to choose the easy path every single time. Alan Sepinwall praised Chase's use of only 2 stories so that he could let them both play out in exhaustive, powerful detail, and wrote that the shot of Tony staring wistfully up at a group of flying ducks, again standing in for the feelings of family and peace that seem to remain forever beyond his grasp, is stunning. James Manos Jr. and David Chase won a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series for their work on this episode. Edie Falco received her first Primetime Emmy Award nomination and win for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series for her performance as Carmela in this episode.
I believe it. I believe it. You can really see the turmoil that she is going through. In that scene, they're sitting down on the floor. They're both inebriated. She is bawling, crying because again, she recognizes, she knows who her husband is.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a surprise. He wasn't keeping the wool over her eyes. She knew who
No.
he was from jump. So I think a part of her feels guilty for how she feels. Like, how could I be so upset when I knew who I was marrying? And it being upset, doesn't change, or knowing who you're marrying doesn't change that you have certain needs or certain expectations, that you want, So it's all of that emotion came pouring out in that scene. It's a heavy scene to watch,
Mm-hmm.
because she's needing something, and the Pastor Phil, man, all he wanted was some ziti. That's all he wanted,
Mm-hmm.
But when put to the fire, he told her, you're a beautiful woman, but I can't, So I just, whew, I'm again looking forward to seeing where that relationship goes. Just from this episode, what is it? Has it gotten us ready for? It's gotten us thinking about the fact that Carmela could potentially cheat on Tony. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're wondering, what would Tony do if Carmela would actually cheat on him? And now that we've
Yeah.
seen him kill, we know it's a little bit of anything. So
And it brings me back to the first episode where they're discussing AJ's party.
hmm,
And she's like, you're gonna be home on time?
yeah, I'm leaving work early. Not talking about
Not
work.
talking about work. And also, it reminds me that she's a very self-aware woman. How many times have you seen? In fact, it's become almost a cliche that people make jokes about. You see this woman get with this guy, and you're like, why is she with him? And you see it. And what do they say? I can change him.
Right.
I can change him. I think Carmela had reached the point up until this, until unless she was lying to herself for a long time. I think she had reached the point that I'm not going to try to change him. I'm going to accept it under these circumstances. I look at that as a form of masturbation. And while I get like because she wanted to be a mother. She's got her
Right.
children now. She's got her work. She's got her work at the church. She's got this beautiful home. She takes care of it and all of that. You have to accept another form of masturbation from now time to time, and let's not, probably doesn't think about that waste management business a lot, as long as you don't bring it here.
Don't bring it home.
But this is the
Um,
same woman. She hears something going on outside. She grabs that assault rifle and goes out.
got that AK ready to go, and that also, let's point that out. It kind of brings the Pastor Phil thing to a head as well, because that first episode, she hears that noise. Pastor Phil is there
Right.
at the house, sees her grab the gun, and he's trying to calm her down because he's like, "Uh oh," you know. And now we fast forward a couple days. Tony and Meadow are gone, and now we're getting Pastor Phil back at the house. He looks a little different, but hey, it's okay. It's
Right,
still
but
Pastor
still, it's
Phil.
still Pastor Phil, right?
It's still Pastor
But
Phil.
forget, the in the first episode, right before she hears that noise, they're talking about The Godfather
Yep.
and how it looks on Laserdisc.
How it looks on Laserdisc. Because yeah, now again, saying everything's back on its head, we see them whenever they're sitting there drinking and eating or whatever. They're watching DVDs now because Tony has a DVD player
Yeah,
that he got from Christopher from Robin Jr. So yeah, I mean, it's like
uh,
we're seeing all that.
goes back to that truck, doesn't it?
Everything goes back to the truck.
Speaking of which, let's go into episode 6, the final episode of this group of episodes that we've done. Mikey beats up the leader of a card game which had been protected by Jimmy Altieri. Mikey says Junior Soprano is the new boss, and he ain't respecting old arrangements. And while Junior is being fitted for a new suit, his tailor tells him that his 14-year-old grandson committed suicide after taking drugs sold to him by Rusty Irish. Rusty is Larry Boy Barisi's top earner, but Junior has him killed. He was feeling suicidal. You saw him jump, thinking, how much did he give you?
Right. Right. He just threw that
He
dude
just
off.
threw the guy off.
And guys like, yeah, it's a damn shame. Dude said he didn't want to live no more.
Because their mothers raised no fools at that
No
end of the
fools.
bridge.
No fools. What else do you expect me to say? You just saw 3 grown men walk onto a bridge, only 2 coming back because you saw 1 get thrown in. What do you
Because they
expect me to
watched the
say?
whole thing. They're
They
like,
watched the whole thing. I'm not gonna tell you anything other than what you want to hear. You just handed me some money. I don't care if it was $5. I'm not saying anything, my guy. I'm not getting involved. Can't
he
happen.
said he didn't want to live no more.
He said oh man, that's a damn shame. He said he want to live no more. Like, come on. Nice.
But that's only one problem that Junior is making, because prompted again by Livia, doing a lot of talking over there at the assisted living facility.
Yes, she is.
Junior tells Hesh he must now, for the first time, make payments to him. So Hesh does what? Goes to Tony, who goes to Johnny Sack, the underboss of New York's Lupertazzi crime family.
Family, yeah.
They negotiate with Junior, who reduces his demands, and Hesh agrees to pay. So Junior's capos are resentful because he's keeping too much money for himself. Tony then speaks to Junior, who agrees to pass Hesh's tribute money down. And then Tony gives his share of his money back to Hesh.
Johnny Sack, we're introduced to Johnny Sack's character. Junior, I'm sure if there's a flea on you, it is paying rent. You
Yep.
know? So we're seeing obviously the money hungriness of Junior. We're seeing again, we answer to bigger people than you. I answer to bigger people than you, my friend.
Yep.
And now we're getting Johnny Sack again of the Carmine Lupertazzi family. So our character watch is getting bigger because we've got so many more people to keep up with. But the way that they did it, I mean, I felt like it made sense. You're absolutely right. Hesh came to Tony. Tony was smart enough to know that he needed to give Junior the illusion that he is in charge. So he went to Johnny Sack on his anniversary day, to talk to him. And, we'll get back into the relationship between Tony and Carmela. But all of that was started because of the influence that Livia has and her anger. She's angry at Tony for putting her in the home. That's what she always says. That's what she says to people like Junior, which is crazy to me because when we see Tony with her, she's usually interacting with her neighbors.
Right.
But when Junior is there, do you see how I live? Do you see what my family does to me? So it's like she's an extreme manipulator because she, while she says what she says to Tony, it seems like she's thriving whenever Tony is around. Whereas when Junior is around, she's the most miserable person. And her saying, text Hesh, my son hangs on every word. He thinks everything he says is gold. Like that's what she says. So yeah, we got to knock him down a peg. And yeah.
And then Tony goes to her about how to deal with Junior.
And she's sitting up, she playing both sides.
Yeah, yeah.
They're building her up to be a very powerful person because they both come to her. Look, I know you have his ear. You could talk to him, and then she's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that actress, man. I
She
love
knows
it.
what she is doing.
She
She
100%,
absolutely knows what she's doing.
100%.
Oh my goodness. And then Tony's so then Tony goes to Junior and he talks about Augustus and all that, and and does the you remember what you once told me about the guy and the
And the bull
the
and the
bull.
son.
Yeah,
You want to run down there and bang a cow? It's like, no. Walk down and
down
bang them
there and bang
all.
them all.
I said that. Jimmy was like, I said that because he
Which
thought it was the
it's
most clever thing.
yeah, it's very subtle. But then that also leads into what this problem that Tony has been having. Tony loses his libido as a side effect of his medication. Carmela and Tony's mistress, Irina, become very discontented. I mean, usually he's good enough to give it to both of them.
Right.
So then he starts having erotic dreams about Dr. Melfi, and he believes he's in love with her. He had been bringing her coffee, and she says, we need to talk about this. I'm not actually allowed to accept gifts
Right.
and all of that. And they're in the middle of a session, and somebody calls about her car is not working. So Tony steals the car and gets it fixed. Arranges to steal the car.
Arrange for I mean, it's I get it to the point that I even was talking to you about yesterday because we briefly discussed this. Like I was saying, he's a bit of a child.
Mm-hmm.
When you have somebody you like them, you want to do nice things for them, and he talks to her all out of pocket, says whatever he wants, he yells at her, but he expects her to be there whenever he comes back. Like how many times has he cussed her out at this point? We're only at episode 6.
Right.
How many times has he stormed out? And talking about storming out, something that happens in this episode that ends one of their sessions, it's perfect because you're talking about the feelings that Tony has with Dr. Melfi. He says, "I love you. I'm in love with you," and that's just supposed to mean what? But because he's Tony Soprano and he's used to getting his way, that was supposed to be enough. So
Right.
whenever he stood up from his seat and went to kiss her, the way she responded was not the way to go.
You're feeling that way because we made such progress. That's why you're feeling good. That's why you're feeling that towards me. It's not all. It's not. You're not in love with me.
Because you don't know me. Now, granted,
Right.
she doesn't. She also doesn't know that he's been having her followed. But she does make a phenomenal point with regards to um, his work with mental health. What do all of the women in your life have common? Tony says they all bust my balls, and she laughs. But your mother, your wife, and your daughter are all Italian. So me being an Italian, you come and you talk to me and you feel like you're dialoguing with them. That's the point that she made. And I'm like, okay, like she knows her stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She knows her stuff. Tony is just not used to a woman like her because people are just so quickly to give in to what he wants because of who he is. That's my opinion.
No, I think you're hitting it on the head, and it just came to me while you were speaking, though, when she talks about I can't accept the gift because he's bringing coffee. In the first episode, he talks about having coffee with a man when it's not really coffee that he was
Right.
having.
Very true. I remember
At
that.
at the same time, Carmela admits to Tony that she's jealous that his therapist can help him and she can't.
And I get
Tony
that too.
tells Tony tells her that she is his life, and they reconcile. So
So if we can talk about the emotion behind that for a second, right?
mm-hmm.
Because
Sure.
if you're watching this show and you're a hardcore monogamist, you're looking at Tony and you're like, Tony's a piece of shit right now because he's saying that she's his everything and that she needs him, but yet he's doing what he's doing. If you're Tony, he legitimately feels that way. Like, he's building this world for her to have everything that she wants. He is trying to provide everything that he can to give his family everything that he did not have. He is trying to be as present as he can. going to different events that the kids have, which is what we've seen. He has juggled being very influential in this crime family, and he's still able to go to recitals, to take his daughter on a college trip, you know?
Right.
So he feels like he's doing the best work, but yet is able to compartmentalize, like I said before, all of his other relationships. And so we're talking about a real complexity of a character. Is it possible to cheat and still love your spouse is a question that will arise from watching this show.
Hmm.
You know, because we're seeing a person making decisions that are for the betterment of his family unit, but yet he's also in the same breath making decisions that would ruin his marriage at the same time.
Hmm.
So that again, I say these things to prepare people because you go into Sopranos and you think, oh, it's about the mob, it's going to be killing, there's going to be drugs, there's going to be crime. No, there's real human emotion and complexity that comes to the character development in the show.
Absolutely. Well, it comes full circle, and Junior celebrates his promotion with a banquet. People get up, they make speeches, they raise their glasses, they toast, and there's a waiter has a button camera and takes photos for the FBI, who at the end have the photos on a corkboard and take Jackie off as being deceased and put Junior up as the new acting head of the family.
Now we're getting it. We're getting ready to be introduced to our newest friend and closest loved one. We're about to get introduced to cousin Rico. So so now we've got another driving force to contend with, and I'm looking forward to the next couple episodes that we're going to watch because how is the FBI going to play into, again, this juggling routine that is trying to be done? Dad Tony with his kids, husband Tony with his wife, boss Tony with the family, and now how is he going to hold all that together while keeping Junior? Because you remember they said they want Junior to be the lightning rod. If anybody got to be in trouble, let it be an old man that doesn't have a family. That's how they talk about Junior.
Right.
You know, how is the FBI going to play into this? Like it's all building up for an explosion, and I'm ready for it. I'm looking forward to that episode when we say, okay, man, this is the one where everything kind of came to a head. Because right now it's just a lot of anxiety, because we don't know what's coming. We know
Right.
they're taking pictures. That's all we know is they're taking pictures.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
As always, great series. That was a strong 4 episodes for building, and laying more of that groundwork for what's to come. Talking about 86 episodes, we're 5, 6 in now. And if nothing else, as I look up at the screen and they're in the bada bing right now, and those girls do not take a day off. It doesn't matter what's going on in the bing, they are dancing non-stop. So no, I'm looking forward to the next assignment. I'm hoping that everybody is enjoying the rewatch with us, man. And yeah, yeah, I'm just ready for more stuff, man. When I get to an episode that really gets me wet, you're gonna know it. It's good, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, and also trying to, folks. I know it's been off the air for 15 years, but trying to avoid as much spoilers as I can. I know,
I
like
get
I
it.
said, I know a few of the big highlights that are coming because, again, unless you were in a coma or living under a rock, you know some of what's coming. So
So I said, man, you said it in the first episode. There are certain monumental things that you just can't avoid. Like even if I had never seen the Game of Thrones, pop culture being what it is, I know there's a red wedding.
right,
So if anything, I'm just going to be surprised when it happens because I don't know when it's coming, but I know there is a red wedding.
right,
So Sopranos being what it is, you know certain highlights. I mean, you built some of your comedy on it. So you know
right,
certain things are coming. You just don't know how it's going to play out, and you don't know the things that are going to take place to lead into it, and that's
right.
where it gets rich, man. So, yeah. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So thank you so much. Please rate and subscribe and like and share. Do everything that you do. We will see you again here next time. Peace.